Well, welcome back here again with Josh Zeid, um, having a great conversation. You had mentioned in the video that you are proudly Jewish and that you always wear your Jewish star, even when it's against the rules. How and when did you develop your love of Israel in addition to Judaism?
I had always, I don't know if this question exists in my life, in my framework. I never really put two and two together, especially when I was younger. I had always had opportunities to go through sports, never ended up going because there was, life happening, unfortunately. Um, but early on in my professional career, we had been presented. So I guess, unfortunately, that was probably 22 years into my life. My sister had gone on birthright and always told me how great it was and how I needed to go. But birthright always came during, baseball season or spring break or whatever it was. And when I was always, in the crux of my baseball events. So that was just something that, we couldn't, I wasn't willing to bend on for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever that ended up turning into. But when I was 21 or 22, when I first went in my first or second, professional season, one of the Major League Baseball writer, Jonathan Mayo, who you'll see in the movie, is he knew I was Jewish. I like I said earlier, everyone knew I was Jewish. It wasn't something that I was willing to hide. I was not afraid. And he came up to me and asked me if part of a group if we would go to Israel and kind of just do like a little movie deal, like go back, see where you're from, connect as on a deeper level. You always say you're Jewish, but now actually like being Jewish and being in Israel is a different vibe. Like is that something that you would be interested in? And like without even thinking about it, I said yes. And I think from that moment on, that was 2010. I think it was the fall of 2010. And so that was the moment that I was like, okay, well, this might be a reality. I might be able to get to go to Israel. And so I ended up doing a lot more research, learning a little bit more about, the country, not just the religion. Cause I felt like I had known a lot about being Jewish. Still some questions, always learning and always asking questions. But, I would say in the last 11 years of my life that passion has definitely grown significantly. And I've been twice since. I wish I could have been more, but twice I feel pretty lucky having been already. So
I'm jealous. That's all I can say. So you mentioned earlier that you were bar mitzvah, but you didn't mention anything about Jewish youth groups. Did you participate, or you just didn't have the time or interest?
I had the interest. I would have loved to had done because my sister had done all of those, but it was one of those. My parents allowed me to choose. My sister did everything under the sun, every youth group, everything that would tie her to the community, Judaism. But I was allowed the choice, which doesn't usually happen. And I do understand that, parents don't usually give their 13-year-old, their 12-year-old, their 14-year-old the opportunity to choose. And then 20 years ago, now there's a lot more choice.
Right.
30 years ago, we weren't really giving, they weren't really giving kids, what do you want to do? And they allowed me to do that. And that was before I was the best player on my team. That was before I was throwing 97 miles an hour. So they saw the passion that I had. I guess I don't know what it was. They saw that passion. They gave me that chance to do it, and I hope I was able to repay that at some point to them. Allowing me to choose, and I think I have, but
I'm betting you did. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll still working on it.
It's hard to observe the Jewish holidays in particular when you're away at school. Mm-hmm. Were you able to do that when you were
in college? Yeah. During the college recruiting process, I had been recruited by almost every college. Fortunately, most colleges in the United States. I was targeting the Southeastern Conference, which was at the time the best baseball conference. Most of those schools are in the Southeast, obviously, right in Mississippi State, Arkansas, Florida. A few of those schools, they all knew who I was, obviously, but on 18 years ago, on the applications to go to school, it asks, what church are you a member of? And I remember, because that's a question, like baseball on Sundays, there's chapel. Chaplains come in and they, they go through the prayer for that Sunday, but they never bring in a rabbi on Saturdays or Friday nights to kind of go over, the readings on those days. So, I remember writing back on those sheets that I go to synagogue, right? I'm Jewish, I'm conservative Jewish. And a handful of the schools wrote back or called back and said, we don't have a Hillel on campus. We don't know what a Hillel is. We researched it. We don't know what that is, but there are synagogues within 30 minutes of our campus. We can, hook you up with and so I ended up going to two schools who had Hillels on campus. so I could participate as much as possible in the holidays and the events that they had as much as possible, which does become challenging because the baseball season is not based around, Jewish holidays. It's based around, national holidays, unfortunately, which are different, Yeah,
I do. Was it a problem when you played for the major league?
No. And for the amount that I played in the major leagues, I was not in a position to unfortunately take a stand. I also wasn't playing deep enough into the season to have it coincide with Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah or
Right.
or things like that. So at the time, it didn't really present itself as an issue. And the unfortunate thing about Passover is Passover comes usually during spring training, and not many people can take a week off, for a holiday during spring training when you're trying to earn a right to play on a team. So yeah, I think it could have been significantly more challenging and I'm not that I was raised incorrectly, but we didn't put an emphasis on the world stopping for the holidays. We appreciated everything that the holidays provide and present, but our lives kept going. Even if we went to synagogue in the morning and spent 6 hours there, if we had something to do in the evening, we would do it and abide by the restrictions of such holiday. Yeah.
So did you eat kosher for Passover during spring training, and what did that do to your energy?
When I was playing professionally, I did not. Because we're on the field in 100-degree weather, depending on if you're in Arizona or Florida, for 7 days. And I do know that I actually can't speak for other Jewish baseball players. I don't know if they've done it, if they do it. Not that I ever saw. I know that when I was in high school, I would. Yeah, I would try as much as possible. I think we would focus on like the first couple days, really, really harp on staying true to it. But then, as the week got on and, events got a little bit more strenuous, then made some allowances. But we asked for forgiveness, unfortunately, not permission.
I don't think you get either. I think it's up to you. Did your Judaism ever put you in a position where you had to make tough choices, where there might be a conflict?
As you'll see in the movie, there's a pretty big, for myself, there's a pretty big religious decision that happens in the movie, family-based decision. I don't want to give too much away right now, but no, I think religion and family allow for, life's choices to kind of evolve, right? We can make hard decisions and tough choices, and as long as we have supportive family and if we have a supportive religion and a supportive God, then we can, we realize that those decisions don't have to be quite so hard, right? They don't have to be, life changing. They can be, it can take us on a different course. And I'm blessed that the way that I grew up, I don't feel pressured in any one direction. I don't feel pressured that I have to do something a certain way. I can observe how I believe I should observe, and it's been a really great way, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm just thankful for everything that I've been able to do, and because of the way that I was raised and where I grew up and all that cool stuff.
You've always been this appreciative of what you've been given.
Sometimes, yeah. I would say I think it's fair to say that when I was 16, I probably just wanted, wanted instead of needed, and now I definitely don't have, like, I don't think I say like thank you and you're welcome every second of the day to everybody. But yeah, no, for the things that I have achieved and for the people that have helped me get there, yeah, no, I definitely I also completely realized that I got very lucky to get to the big leagues, to get to the major leagues, and I don't take that lightly either. Like if I was with another team and another organization, I don't know if I would have had that opportunity. So yeah, it kind of all worked its way out, you know.
The gratitude it shows. So that's why I asked. Now for the harder question. So you referenced Sandy Koufax, and he famously refused to play in the World Series Game 1 on Yom Kippur. I was wondering what your thoughts on that are, and what would you do if you found yourself in a similar position? And do you feel that you have an obligation to set an example for Jewish celebrities?
Well, Sandy Koufax was one of the best pitchers in the history of baseball.
Isn't it nice to be in the same category?
Well, I don't ever put myself in the same category as Sandy Koufax because he is the best pitcher in the history. He's one of the best histories, not whether Jewish or not. He's one of the best pitchers in the history of baseball. So making that decision for him was probably very hard, but also for him, people would notice. People would stop and they would say, "Oh wow, Sandy Koufax is taking the day off or the weekend off because he is celebrating a holiday." If I did it, I don't think anyone would bat an eye. You know, depending on my status, my structure. You know how,
right.
You know, if I was in Sandy's position and if I was a 7-year major leaguer with 7 years of all-star time, and you know all of those things, I think it would be different. You know, so if I was in his shoes, I would have done the same thing. If I was in my shoes at the time of my major league career, I don't know if I would have been able to have as big of an impact if I would, because it's not something that I would have done a few years earlier. So I don't know if the first time in the big leagues, you know, or the first or second year in the major leagues, that is something that I would have really hung my hat on and really try to make a stand there, because early on in your professional career, you're replaceable, whether it's the right reason or not, you know. So, you know, doing things like that are you know, they're very tough to decide if you want to do that. So, but I do believe that playing for, you know, I know this is not the question that you asked, but playing for Team Israel, becoming an Israeli citizen, playing for Team Israel for the last 9 years is putting myself out there and hopefully setting an example for Jewish athletes and Jewish baseball players and Jewish celebrities that it's okay to identify as Jewish. It's okay to identify it as an Israeli citizen, even if I am a dual citizen, that you don't have to be afraid. You know, there's a lot of concern out there. You know, every time that we've flown to Israel, we've had security details. There's always a lot of concerns and issues with, you know, places that we're going as a team or a group or any event that we're holding, you know. So I would hope that, you know, whether or not I would sit out on Yom Kippur or Passover or whatever it is, that the decisions and the stuff that we've done since then or for Jewish, you know, faith and our community is enough to set an example.